Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lifespan Development, where we're going to explore how people grow and change from conception to death. The one thing that I want to make clear about this course is that in the lifespan perspective, we don't just focus on childhood or adulthood. We take into account every aspect and every stage of human development. There are 5 main characteristics of human development, and we're going to talk about each one of those here, beginning with development is multi-directional, which means that traits may appear and disappear with increases and decreases throughout your lifespan. For example, Clint Eastwood, he's relevant to the discussion because here he is in his young years where the focus of his career was on his good looks and his charisma on camera with up-close screenshots and all of the things that the audience would appreciate in a person of his stage in development. And then next you have him 40 years later, in which maybe his looks have decreased in a Hollywood point of view, from a Hollywood point of view, but yet his talents and creativity in directing and writing have increased in his older development. And that is how that is one good example of how development can be multi-directional. Where we have decreases in one area, we may have increases in other areas, and that goes on throughout the lifespan. So the traditional idea that all development advances until about age 18, steadies, and then declines has been refuted by lifespan research. And I'm sure you could think of many examples, and we'll talk about some of those examples in class. And the second important characteristic of development is that development takes place within many contexts. We don't exist within a vacuum. We are affected by our physical surroundings, which could be our climate, noise, population density, whether you live in a city, whether you live in a rural area. It includes family configurations, whether you were raised in a nuclear family, single-parent household, whether you are within a cohabitating couple or an extended family. And leading developmentalist Yuri Bronfenbrenner recommended that developmentalists take an ecological approach. He believed that each person is affected by many social contexts. The ecological systems approach recognizes three nested levels that surround individuals and affect them. Those systems are labeled by Yuri Bronfenbrenner as the microsystem, the exosystem, the macrosystem, the chronosystem, and the mesosystem. And I'll explain each one of those to you. The microsystem consists of your immediate surroundings, your everyday surroundings from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. For example, your family in your household, your peers. And then there's the exosystem, which is your local institutions, such as your neighborhood, your church, your school, the people you associate with in your church and school. Then there's the macrosystems, which are larger social settings, which include economic policies, political processes, cultural values. For example, when it comes to economic policies, if you live in a neighborhood that is of the lower socioeconomic income bracket, do you have a policy in your macro system that assists you with that? For example, public assistance, food stamps, things like that. Then there's your chronosystem, which relates to a time in history, your historical conditions. For example, the Vietnam War, the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and other trends like what names are popular at this point in time, 21st century manners. For example, in the 21st century, we have what we call netiquette. Netiquette didn't exist 30 years ago. So that would be an example of a historical condition, or what names were popular at a particular time. In addition, later on, Yuri Bronfenbrenner realized that there's another context that we need to consider, and that would be the biology, because biology plays an important role, and he recognized that it's a system within the body that affects all external systems. For example, if you have a health condition like diabetes, or you have a physical disability, that certainly would have an effect on an individual. So he later named his theory the bioecological theory to include the consideration of the role of biology. Next, we're going to consider how development is multicultural. Culture is defined as the system of shared beliefs, conventions, norms, behaviors, expectations, and symbolic representations that persist over time and prescribe social rules of conduct. Thus, culture is more than food, clothes, and rituals. It's a set of ideas that people share. This makes culture a powerful social construction, a concept constructed or made by society. And social constructions affect how people think and behave and what they value, ignore, and punish. For example, in Asian culture, the Asian culture values elders in their community. They see them as people who are wise and can offer them guidance in life. Whereas here in the United States, elders may be seen as individuals who take a step back in society and sort of retire from the rest of the community later in life. And also in Asian culture, elderly people are cared for by extended family, whereas in the United States, it is often popular to hire, for example, professional outside people to take care of their elders. And that is one very powerful social construction that we have seen in all different cultures, and that varies from culture to culture. And that's one example that I think that we can all relate to. Development is also multidisciplinary. Human development requires insights and information from many scientists, past and present, and from many disciplines. Our understanding of every topic benefits from the multidisciplinary research Scientists hesitate to apply conclusions about human life until they are substantiated by several disciplines. Consider the following example. At least 12 factors are linked to depression, and here are a few of those. For example, low serotonin in the brain, we learned from the field of neuroscience. Child caregiver depression can also have an effect. That we learned through people who study psychopathology. And diseases, including Parkinson's and AIDS and drugs to treat illnesses, we learned from the medical field. Absence of the father during childhood can influence depression, especially because of divorce, less so because of death or migration, and that we learned through family studies. Family history of eating disorders, we've learned that through people who study genetics and how they influence people's behavior. So again, a multidisciplinary approach is very important to understanding human development. And finally, development is plastic. Although inborn traits and childhood experiences affect later development, patterns and possibilities can change lifelong. The term plasticity denotes two complementary aspects of development: that human traits can be molded as plastic can be, and yet maintain a certain durability of identity as plastic does. Every individual and every trait within each individual can be altered at any point in the lifespan, and change is ongoing, although neither random nor easy. I've seen this many times in working with people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. For example, someone who's born with Down syndrome, we know has a fixed genetic abnormality, and that will not change. However, what can change is those persons' individual abilities and potentials. With the proper guidance and support, they can learn to read, work, and live a good quality of life.